Through the night, under floodlights brighter than day, German officers watched in disbelief. A bridge was rising from the Rhine, faster than they thought possible, faster than anything they believed could exist. Steel panels locked together like a giant's toy set, men working with the casual efficiency of a factory assembly line, no massive cranes, no pile drivers shaking the earth, just rhythm, precision, and endless supplies flowing from an infinite stockpile. March 24, 1945, 2:47 a.m. eastern bank of the Rhine River near Wesel, Germany. Major Hans Joachim Brenner of the Wehrmacht's 116th Panzer Division pressed his field glasses against his eyes, his hands trembling, not from the cold March air, but from what he was witnessing. The pencil in his breast pocket held words he had scrawled in his personal diary just minutes before, words that would have earned him a court-martial if discovered by his superiors. They cannot be building bridges this fast. It defies everything we know, everything we were taught, everything that should be possible. 2 men, 1 panel, locked in place, another follows. No cranes, no pile drivers, just rhythm, precision, and endless supplies. The Americans weren't building a bridge. They were assembling one, piece by identical piece, like a massive construction kit stretched across 400 meters of rushing water. The mathematics made no sense. German doctrine, perfected over centuries, calculated 2 weeks minimum for a military bridge capable of supporting armor across such a span. 2 weeks with perfect conditions, 2 weeks with thousands of laborers, 2 weeks with pile drivers pounding day and night. The Americans had started yesterday morning at 9. Oberst Wilhelm von Stauffen arrived at Brenner's observation post, a veteran who had built and destroyed more bridges than any officer in the Wehrmacht. He watched in silence, then spoke with the hollow tone of a man watching his world collapse. In Russia, it took us 3 weeks to bridge the Dnieper. 3 weeks with 2,000 men. The Dnieper is narrower than this. To the Germans, a bridge was a masterpiece, each timber selected, each joint calculated, each span a testament to engineering skill. To the Americans, a bridge was a kit, identical panels, identical pins, instructions so simple a farm boy could follow them. The Germans built monuments, the Americans built tools, and tools could be mass-produced by the thousand. Through his binoculars, von Stauffen watched the bridge extending itself across the Rhine, cantilevered out over the water without support, defying gravity through some engineering magic he couldn't comprehend. As each 10-foot section was completed, the entire structure rolled forward on wheels, pushed by men who seemed to treat this impossible feat as routine. "Look at the deflection," von Stauffen muttered. "The bridge sags nearly a meter in the center, but it holds." How can it hold? General Alfred Schlemm, commander of the 1st Parachute Army, studied aerial reconnaissance photographs in his farmhouse command post. 6 bridges at various stages of completion along a 20-kilometer front, some already carrying tanks. In one photograph, American armor crossed single file, while engineers still widened the bridge for 2-way traffic. Lieutenant Colonel Friedrich Holtzmann spread his analysis across the table, his voice strained with professional disbelief. Each panel, 3 meters by 1.5. They connect with simple pins, like a child's construction set. No bolts, no welding, no complex joints. 5 different types of components, all light enough for 2 men to carry. Any soldier could build this. They don't need engineers. They've democratized engineering itself. The implications were catastrophic. Every German defensive plan assumed rivers meant time. 2 weeks per major crossing. Time to reorganize. Time to bring reserves. Time to counterattack. The entire strategy for defending Germany depended on these calculations. Captain Ernst Richter had spent the night calling artillery strikes on the bridge sites. 500 rounds. Direct hits. Through his rangefinder, he watched 88mm shells explode on the bridge structures. The American response was almost casual. Remove damaged panel. Insert new panel. Resume construction. What should have been catastrophic damage became a minor repair. "It's like fighting a hydra," Richter reported. "Every component we destroy, they replace. They must have thousands of spare parts, tens of thousands." The truth was more staggering. The Bailey Bridge, developed by a team at the British Experimental Bridging Establishment, had been mass-produced beyond German comprehension. 650 firms churning out 25,000 panels per month at peak production. While the Wehrmacht cannibalized damaged vehicles for spare parts, the Allies had industrialized bridge construction itself. Major General Heinrich von Manteuffel arrived at the front on March 25th. Through his field glasses, he watched American armor crossing a Bailey Bridge that swayed and flexed but held. Behind the tanks came an endless column. Trucks, jeeps, artillery, more tanks. Not a careful military crossing, but highway traffic. "How long did this take?" von Manteuffel asked. "Less than 24 hours, Herr General." Von Manteuffel lowered his field glasses. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, so quietly his staff had to lean in to hear, "We trained a lifetime to use rivers. We studied every crossing from Caesar to Napoleon. But rivers no longer matter. Geography no longer matters. We are fighting the wrong war." Lieutenant Werner Gross, captured near Wesel, was shocked not by his interrogation, but by the conversation with American engineers afterward. One sergeant from Detroit mentioned his unit had built the same bridge 50 times in training. 50 times. Same parts every time. Same sequence. Like working an assembly line at Ford, except outdoors. Got so we could do it blindfolded. This was incomprehensible. German engineers were craftsmen, each bridge unique. The Americans had turned bridge building into muscle memory. Field Marshal Model confronted reality on March 26th. If rivers don't buy time, they're not obstacles. They're just terrain. And if rivers are just terrain, there's no defensive line between here and Berlin. At Oppenheim, the 5th Infantry Division crossed without artillery preparation. First boats at 10:30 p.m. on March 22nd. Bailey Bridge started at dawn. Within 48 hours, 4 divisions across with 2 complete bridges carrying traffic. Entire divisions crossed faster than German reconnaissance could report. Luftwaffe pilot Hauptmann Klaus Becker flew reconnaissance on March 27th. Through his camera viewfinder, multiple parallel bridges, traffic control points, even fuel stations. They weren't conducting a military operation. They were installing infrastructure. The psychological impact was devastating. Feldwebel Otto Kraus had blown the bridge at Bad Godesberg perfectly. Both spans in the Rhine. We celebrated, bought 2 weeks. Next morning, Americans driving tanks across a new bridge 500 meters upstream. My men just stared. What was the point? General Gotthard Heinrici, master of defensive warfare, told his staff, "This Bailey Bridge has compressed time itself. We planned for the last war. They invented a new one." When German engineers finally captured components for analysis, the simplicity was insulting. Welded steel trusses, massive pins hammered by hand, no special tools required, no complex calculations. Engineering stripped to pure function. Captain Hans Dietrich, honors graduate from Berlin Technical University, examined the panels with dismay. The genius is in what they didn't include. No adjustable components, no special fittings, every piece exactly the same. We Germans love complexity, showing skill through elaborate solutions. Americans removed skill from the equation. Major Bernhard Ramke watched American engineers build under fire near Ries. His paratroopers launched 3 attacks, taking terrible casualties. When we killed their engineers, replacements stepped over the bodies and continued driving the same pin. No confusion, no delay. The bridge never paused. Inhuman efficiency. The German High Command's War Diary, March 28th. Enemy completed 40 bridges across Rhine. Destruction ineffective. Damaged sections replaced within hours. Rivers no longer constitute significant obstacles. General Hans Krebs prepared Hitler's assessment in early April. Enemy bridging capacity makes traditional defensive warfare impossible. They advance as rapidly across rivers as across open ground. Hitler, isolated in his bunker, refused to accept it, but his generals knew truth. Americans would build bridges wherever needed, faster than Germans could react. Colonel Wilhelm Wilke observed American engineers working with radios playing, coffee breaks rotating through without construction pausing. They removed drama from war. What should have been desperate assault crossing became routine construction project. This casualness reflected material abundance. Germans hoarded every piece. Americans treated components as expendable. knowing unlimited replacements existed. Major Hans Zimmermann, Knight's Cross winner for brilliant improvised bridges in Russia, realized his expertise was obsolete. A corporal with a manual could do what took me 20 years to learn. Americans democratized engineering, turned art into process. We were master craftsmen against an assembly line. General der Panzertruppe Hasso von Manteuffel provided the insight. The Bailey Bridge embodied American war, standardized, mass-produced, infinitely repeatable. We built perfect bridges, each one testament to skill. They built adequate bridges anywhere, any time. We fought as artists. They fought as industrial system. March 1945 alone, 60 Bailey bridges across Rhine and tributaries. The longest at Ries, 1,814 feet in 52 hours. Field Marshal Kesselring issued desperate orders. Rivers no longer primary defensive positions. New doctrine must be developed independent of geographical obstacles. But there was no time. The war was ending, accelerated by steel panels, ordinary soldiers assembled into bridges. General Heinz Guderian, father of armoured warfare, told interrogators, "You want to know how you won? You built bridges. We knew how to fight, proved it in France, Russia, Africa. But you knew how to build. In modern war, building is more important than fighting." Colonel Hans von Luck was even more specific. The Bailey Bridge removed geography from warfare. Rivers that shaped European conflicts for 1,000 years became irrelevant. As Germany surrendered in May 1945, the scope became clear. Over 200 miles of Bailey bridging manufactured, 4,000 bridges built during the war. Major General Friedrich Schultz summarized, "We weren't defeated by better soldiers or tactics. We were defeated by better systems, by an enemy who industrialized engineering itself." Field Marshal Montgomery would later state that without the Bailey Bridge, the Allies could not have won the war. Wilhelm Keitel, signing unconditional surrender, admitted what German leadership grasped too late. "We prepared for war of movement and tactics. We got war of production and logistics. We trained soldiers. They trained builders. The Bailey Bridge wasn't just a bridge. It was everything we failed to understand about modern warfare." General Gotthard Heinrici provided the final assessment. "Your Bailey bridges crossed not just the Rhine, but 2,000 years of military history. You didn't defeat the river. You made it irrelevant. The Rhine still flows through Germany, as it has since Roman times. But in 1945, its meaning changed forever. For the first time in history, rivers no longer shaped war. Systems did. The German generals, who never imagined America's Bailey bridges could carry tanks across rivers in hours, had failed to imagine not just equipment, but an entire philosophy of warfare where building mattered more than fighting, where efficiency defeated elegance, where the assembly line conquered the craftsman. They had been the last generation to believe geography determined strategy. The Bailey Bridge proved them wrong, one prefabricated panel at a time, across every river in Germany.